We're joined today with David Gilbert, who's the president of the Cleveland Sports Commission and a longtime friend, and wears many hats in Cleveland. Besides being a good friend to everybody in the town and all the great work he does, we appreciate your effort, David. But we're here today to talk about one of our biggest awards of the year that we give out, and that's the Sports Commission of the Year Award for markets over 500,000 people. And the work you do in Cleveland is spectacular. And I'm always proud to take a look at what you do each year. And this is a special award in our opinion because it's put out and it's judged by your peers. And it's a pretty laborious process. Since we've come on board here and taken leadership, they've always looked at these awards very seriously, but we have an extra ounce now of scrutiny, and you guys did a tremendous job. And we know that 2019 was not only a record year for you and the building blocks that you've been able to establish there. So first of all, with one of the highest awards that we could give out, congratulations, my friend, for winning that award. And why don't you give me a little bit of a reaction and kind of a little summary of some of the great things that you've done in 2019.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and as you said, especially because it comes from our peers. We have such a great relationship and respect for so many of our peer organizations that are, while competitors, are also friends. And there's a lot of us that talk all the time. We learn from each other. We help each other. So knowing that it comes from that group is very meaningful. And I think, it's a great affirmation. We all work very hard for our community, and you certainly don't do it for the affirmation, but when it comes, it is really meaningful. I think very meaningful to our staff. A lot of our staff don't really get as involved and engaged in the industry as some of our leadership in the organization does. And so, across the board, everybody is really excited. And I think it's very, it does mean a lot for everybody in the organization. They work incredibly hard.
The resume and the body of work that you guys did in 19 was really on track in 20. And then we hit the pause button around March. So why don't you talk for a moment, David, about the scope of the types of work that you provide for your marketplace and the sports market in particular?
Well, for us, it really, first and foremost, as with most of our peers, it's about economic impact. It's about advancing our community through the hosting of major events. We also get very engaged in programming, particularly around our events, and being a partner with a lot of other organizations on things that they need. But ultimately, the way our community views us is a big economic engine and a huge ROI in the support that they give to our organization and what the community gets back out of it. And certainly when you have the major events, there's also enormous visibility. People take great pride. We did host last year MLB All-Star Game as a great example that we were the ones who wrote the bid and very integral to making sure that went off the way it did. We were in charge of raising all the community dollars, managing the organizing committee. And we had a big year, really big year in a couple of ways. I think probably three overall. Number one was in business development, in the number of events and large scale events that we're able to attract to Cleveland for future years. We also hosted a dozen large national events in Cleveland. These are ones, when we talk about events that took place that we count, they're ones that we are the lead organization to attract and to manage. And so we don't put anything on our list that are things that happen to take place in Cleveland or we touched in some small way. These were, really significant events. And I think a very important one for us is we were very fortunate in between 2018 and 19 to work on and ultimately be awarded 4 major events that'll all take place in a 5-year period of time. In Major League Baseball All-Star Game, NBA All-Star Game, NFL Draft, and NCAA Women's Final Four. And we put together a program that ran in 19 to raise over $15 million to cover the community obligations related to hosting those events. And we raised about 90% of it, over 90% in 2019. And then we also, along with that, put together an extremely robust set of community programs over 5 years under an umbrella for the hosting of those events. And we ran many of those along before and after MLB All-Star Game, and it engaged thousands of people in the community, particularly underserved youth, and having them have an opportunity to really be a part of those events and take advantage of those events being in Cleveland when they otherwise wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, that's a very important element of what you do in Cleveland is what I kind of categorize as return on mission. Those may be outside the traditional sense of how sports commissions and CBBs who engage in sports are measured. And the community work there you do in Cleveland is absolutely spectacular. And I know that you do some ongoing research to measure that, but talk more, David, if you will, about the work you do, not only the impact that you just recited about how it has helped some of the kids that need, but talk more about the community at large and what it means to Cleveland with all the activities.
Cleveland is a city that for a couple of decades, quite frankly, probably a couple of generations, has battled perception issues. Was really at the heart with a couple of other cities of that Rust Belt image, and a city that was based on heavy manufacturing became a very wealthy, prominent city based on that. And in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when much of that went outside the U.S., had some very tough times. So there's a couple of important things. Certainly one, as we measure, since we started 20 years ago, about $800 million in direct spending in events that we have attracted to Cleveland that otherwise wouldn't have been there. But also for a city like ours with those perception issues, having those major events, having those events that shine a spotlight is even more meaningful locally for our community. I think a lot of what we've done has really helped Cleveland over the past 10 years, and Clevelanders believe in themselves even more, and really elevated the self-perception by Clevelanders of their own community, and a huge amount of pride. And I think for a city like Cleveland and ones like that have gone through those difficult times, it really does make a huge difference, and in many ways an outsized difference. And it's something that we are really cognizant of and proud of, and I think in many ways helps us maintain the support of the community that we get.
Yeah, that's a very important part, and as we evolve in the sports events and tourism industry, that definition of success kind of widens. And one of the great events that I've been able to participate in due to your inviting me, and I appreciate it a great deal, is some of the kind of sports related events that you do on a local basis. And one in particular that you guys do a tremendous job is your annual sports awards program. You want to talk for a moment about the kind of engagement you get from your board and how that came up, how the whole concept came up, and what that means to the body at large.
It is our one fundraiser a year, our one significant fundraiser a year, and we're up now where every year we generate over $500,000 for the operation of the organization. And it was dreamed up actually in our very first year, and it was by a top executive at the Browns. And the idea was, let's have the sports commission put together, in essence, an ESPYs of Cleveland. But the beautiful thing is, at our core, is that the Cavaliers, the Indians, and the Browns are all at the table every time. And it's all about a celebration of Cleveland sports, and not just professional sports. We celebrate amateur sports, high school, collegiate, courage around sports. And it's really become an incredible event every year. I really believe that it is, knowing our community, one of the top 2 or 3 benefit fundraiser events in our community every year. We pack it. Obviously this year will look different with COVID, but we pack it with well over 1,200 people. And our board, we'll sell 120, 130 tables. Our board buys them, other companies buy them, individuals buy them. They're not inexpensive. Our board is hugely engaged. Every year, 2 different board members step up to chair the event. We have a big committee. We raise over $100,000 just on the auction and our board is very involved in soliciting the auction. And it's amazing how many partners kick in just to make it a great event. But at its core, people always come out of there feeling great about their community. And I think that's what we love about it, that even in years when our teams are not doing well, and there are plenty of years when none of our teams are doing well, we find ways to celebrate great things about Cleveland sports. And quite frankly, it gives us the best opportunity we have all year to talk about the work that we do, and that it is a part of the sports landscape. It is a big part of the economics of the sports landscape. And it really creates this wonderful sense of goodwill between the community and the Sports Commission.
Yeah, being a native Clevelander, I sense the pride when I come back to your event, and win or lose, the teams, it's one of those great communities that support and celebrate and eat and tailgate and do all the fun things. So maybe the last question in closing is, more and more markets are getting involved and expanding beyond just the recruitment of activities and events and the return on admission local. Talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing around the owned and operated events, and are you participating in owning your own events or developing your own events?
It's something that we've done over a number of years. We've learned from great cities like Richmond who do a lot of this. And I think we look at it in a couple of different ways. One, you have to find the right opportunity. I mean, that's for sure, because the beautiful thing about events that are owned by others is they have a built-in audience when you bring in your NCAA championships and your NGB championships and so on. And creating your own event, there's a lot of risk and don't necessarily, you're building from the ground up. But the wonderful thing is when you do that and it's successful, you own an annuity. And we've had a number through the years. We hosted a number of years of a Black College Classic football game we created. We had an international multi-sport youth event that we lasted for 11 years. And in its biggest years brought in well over 2,000 athletes, plus friends and family, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all over the world every year. And we've done others as well. I think part of it is you have to look for, it's like any good business, you have to look for opportunity. And to us, it's not something that we build as the core of our business, but it is something that is certainly an important ingredient to our success. And when you build a good infrastructure, we know how our organization and many of our peers, we know how to run a great event. We know what the industry looks like. And we're fortunate to have, I believe, in my mind, and I'm sure others may feel the same way, hands down the best staff in our industry. They are passionate, they're amazing at what they do. And when you take that and you apply it to an owned and operated event, you have a real chance to be successful, particularly if you apply it in a way that you know the ins and outs of your own community and how to make something like that work. And it's something that every year it ebbs and flows, the number of owned and operated events we may have or not have, but it is always an important part of our of the mix of our business.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is 2019 Sports Commission year, over 500,000 people, and you can hear from the conversation we just had, David touches many aspects, he and his team, on the community and uplift the citizens of Cleveland, but more importantly, they make a difference on the economic impact and the livelihood and the well-being of the citizens of Cleveland. So David, very, very proud of you and the award, and congratulations, and hope to see you on the podium again next year.